We have made it through the first 6 weeks of the season, and we now enter the last 3 weeks of the season. The playoffs are on the line. With 256 spots to fill the IHSA field, 120 of those spots are filled by teams with 5 wins or more already. There's 136 spots still left up for grabs, and about 8 to 9 teams will fill those spots as 4-win teams. That puts the playoff point total mark around 47 to 48 points that you're needing to get if you want to make the playoffs as a 4-win team. That means currently you need to be sitting around 31 to 32 points at the low end in order to have a chance as a 4-win team to make the playoff field. I am your host, Kyle Kampmeyer. Let's recap Week 6 right now.
Need a fresh look for your home? Neff Paints, based in Warren, Illinois, is the local expert in interior and exterior painting, staining, and power washing. Serving Galena, Dubuque, Lake Carroll, Apple Canyon Lake, Lena, and beyond, Neff Paints uses premium products for lasting quality. Contact Skylar at 815-541-7338 for a free estimate and let your home shine inside and out.
In IHSA action, Polo walked away from Floyd Daub Field on Friday night with a 30-14 win over number 1 ranked Milledgeville. Gus Mumford accounted for 290 total yards of offense and 4 touchdowns on the night as the Polo QB had the biggest impact in the game to move the Marcos into the number 1 ranking. Logan Nelson and Wyatt Plockno were also big supporters on the line on both sides of the ball. Milledgeville dropped a tough one on Friday night, and after winning the last 2 regular season games against the Marcos, maybe this was the extra motivation they need to realize bad things can happen when you are not ready for them. I would expect to see a huge burst on Friday night with a quick knockout blow as the Missiles get prepared for what they hope to be a long playoff run. Orangeville made it to 3-3, which is what I talked about the Broncos needed and do 2 weeks ago. Now, they host an all-important game against the upstart West Carroll Thunder to see if they can make the playoffs. Hayden Schofield leads all of the IFA in rushing yards with over 1,400 yards on the season, but the Broncos will need a steady dose of additional help to secure the win and a potential playoff spot. I look forward to being in Orangeville on Saturday to watch this one play out. Speaking of West Carroll, the Thunder were able to secure the all-important 5th win to book a trip to the playoffs in their inaugural year of IHSA play. With Aiden Buchholz and Rafe Pickard-Shinchin combining for over 1,200 yards on the ground, the Thunder are now playing for more wins and a potential higher seed. Amboy rebounded quickly from their Week 5 loss as they handed FCW a big loss, 46-14 in Week 6. Now, they get an easy week to prepare for another war with West Central coming up in Week 8. Things don't get easier for FCW as they have to come back from the beatdown by Amboy to hit the road to Biggsville to play undefeated West Central. Seth Jones and Leland Durbin will need to have big games to take down the Heat. Ridgewood continues to take care of business as usual behind the legs of Roy Sandberg and Gavin Franks. They will need to keep getting other players to step up as they position themselves for the final 3 weeks of the season. South Beloit picked up win number 5 to secure their spot in the 2024 playoffs. They will get a huge test this week with perennial power Milledgeville coming to town. Pawnee remained undefeated as Carson Wart had another big game to lead the Indians to a lopsided win over Oblong. One of the much anticipated games of the season is this week as Pawnee will play host to Martinsville on Saturday. Adam Parcel and Caden Simons have been the guys leading the charge for the Blue Streaks this season. Expect a big crowd and a playoff-type atmosphere for this game. South Fork gutted out a win over Metro East Lutheran. This week will be a tune-up week before finishing the season with STM and St. Anne in weeks 8 and 9 respectively. Milford Cisna Park picked up win number 5 and stamped their 6th consecutive trip to the playoffs. Caleb Couture moved into the second spot of the IHSA all-time receiving leaders list as he sits on 1,124 yards receiving and 26 touchdowns. The Bearcats will get a bye week win this week for the second time this season before big playoff impact games with Martinsville and Pawnee in weeks 8 and 9 respectively. St. Anna's rode the legs of Chris Link to 4 wins on the season. They should have no problem getting wins over the next 2 weeks before a playoff-type game in Week 9 with South Fork. St. Thomas More has gone from 1-2 to start the season to 4-2 as they control their own destiny. Reed Craddock entered himself into the IHSA all-time passing leaderboard as he eclipsed 2,000 yards for his career along with 23 touchdown passes. The Sabres have the ability of winning out to finish in 7-2, something I brought up back in Week 4. The lone game that stands out that Week 8 matchup was South Fork. Lena Winslow blew the doors off Du-Pec, turning the heads of many as they expected the game to be much closer than it was. Alex Schlichting had another big night for the Panthers as they got the clock running at the end of the third quarter, putting a halt on the big offense of Du-Pec. The Rivermen have to lick their wounds and get back in shape as a hungry and desperate Fulton team comes to town, hoping to keep their playoff hopes alive. Du-Pec has another big test with state-ranked Seneca waiting for them in Week 9. Stockton surprised the area, not with the win over Forreston, but with the dominating 44-point first half that put the game into a running clock start to start the second half. The Blackhawks still have some work to do as they need to win 2 of their next 3 to make the playoffs for the first time since 2019. Morrison moved to 3-3 with a lopsided win over Dakota. They hit the road to play Stockton in a must-win game, or at least a game close enough to it, if the Mustangs hope to get back in the playoffs. Brady Anderson had his biggest game of the season last week. If he can find that spark, along with some others helping out the charge, they may find a way to make it happen. EPC picked up their 5th win, all but ensuring their first trip to the playoffs since 2018 when they reached the semifinals. They get a shot at a share of the conference title with Lena Winslow coming to town. Can Draven Zier and Adam Allender do enough to offset the Panthers and bring the boom in Lanark? We will know soon enough. Galena glows on the road to play Dakota in search of their 5th win to become playoff eligible. Favored in 2 of their next 3 games, it won't be easy for the Pirates, but they should see themselves back in the playoffs after a 2-year drought. Let's take a look at the Week 7 matchups coming up next. Peoria Heights takes to the road as they travel to Amboy. Peoria Heights enters this game at 2-4 while Amboy enters at 5-1. There really isn't much to say about this game as Amboy has been one of the best teams in IHSA over the past 3 seasons, while Peoria Heights hasn't found much success. Expect the Clippers to get this one over in a hurry. River Ridge returns home where they play host to Alden-Hebron. Both teams will enter this game at 2-4. On the surface, this game looks to have some playoff implications on the line. And in one respect it does, as Alden-Hebron has a favorable final 3 weeks to make that happen. Can the Wildcats and Damon Dittmer change the plans for Alden-Hebron? That is the question. A team that would like that to happen are the Orangeville Broncos. The Giants are the favorites in this game. Milledgeville has to take to the road to play South Beloit as the Sobos host the Missiles. Both teams enter at 5-1. A game between state-ranked foes, the number 4 Missiles play the number 11 ranked Sobos. They may have matching records, but that is about all they have in common at this point in the season. The Missiles have something to prove, but one thing they need to do is get better at establishing the run game. Expect Milledgeville to win this one big. We have another Saturday matinee in Orangeville as the Broncos will play host to West Carroll. The Thunder enter this game at 5-1, while Orangeville enters at 3-3. The Thunder survived the storm of tumultuous seasons and have bookmarked their place into the 2024 playoffs. Now, they get a chance to keep a team out of the playoffs if they can saddle up the Broncos. Hayden Schofield leads all of IHSA in rushing yards, but so far he seems to be a one-man band. We have seen how this can play out in years past, so the Broncos will need to play tougher up front on both sides of the ball, especially if they want to wrangle in the rushing attack of Buchholz and Pickard-Chinchin. Polo returns home to play host to Christian Life as the Marcos are 6-0. Christian Life enters this game at 1-5. The Marcos took an 8-8 halftime score and dominated the line in the second half of the game, as Gus Mumford did what Gus Mumford has done all season en route to a big win in the Battle of the Blacktop. It is time to see what Polo can do to help build for another long playoff run. Expect Polo large in this game.
This portion of our broadcast is brought to you by Diedrich Epoxy Flooring. Serving northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin, Diedrich Epoxy is the source for all of your epoxy needs. Give Diedrich Epoxy Flooring a call today at 815-239-1158 for your free estimate.
Galena goes on the road to look to upset Dakota's homecoming as the Pirates enter with a 4-2 mark, and Dakota enters this game at 0-6. The Pirates are in search of their fifth win to become playoff eligible. The play of Roman Romer and Miles Schumacher has really helped carry the Pirates all season. If Galena can get some other contributions at a more steady rate, the Pirates could surprise some people in Week 10 and beyond. Dakota has had a rough go all season long, but they have scored a touchdown in each of their last two games. The Indians need to look inside and see if they can find ways to not just play for pride, but wreck some other teams' seasons. Week 7 would be a great start for that, as Galena comes into this game as the favorite. Forreston hits the road to take on Southwestern East Dubuque as the 2024 season sees the Cards' playoff streak come to an end after 13 consecutive trips to the playoffs, including 9 consecutive trips to the round of 16. They enter this game at 1-5, while Southwestern East Dubuque is 3-4. They play a somewhat familiar foe with the SWED head coach Joe Edler, the Lena Winslow QB from the 2010 state champs, who leads this team, along with current NUIC member East Dubuque in this co-op. This can be a big statement game for the Cards, as the NUIC has not lost to a Wisconsin foe this season. It is a big playoff point for other teams within the conference as well. If it is a pride game to show that the NUIC is as tough as advertised. The Cards enter this game as a 2-touchdown favorite. Du-Pec returns home to the friendly confines of Pecatonica as the Rivermen enter this game at 5-1 and play host to the Fulton Steamers, who enter this game at 2-4. We have the tale of two sides here when the Steamers roll into Pecatonica on Friday night. Fulton was bit by the injury bug after week 2, and while not at 100% health, they're about as healthy as they are going to be going into this game. Dom Kramer has been the catalyst behind the Steamer team, and the return of Josiah Held on both sides of the line has helped too. They will need to be ready to go, as Cooper Hoffman and company are a little bitter after last week's buzzsaw that found them on the wrong side of the scoreboard. Du-Pec will be the heavy favorite in this game. The facilities aren't the greatest, in fact pretty average at best, but the environment has one of those old age feels, which is definitely one of the best, especially come playoff time. We are talking about John O'Boyle Field in Stockton as the Blackhawks enter this game at 3-3 and will play host to the Morrison Mustangs, who match that record of 3-3. Come Friday night, it'll be a playoff-type atmosphere when Morrison travels to 30 minutes up Route 78 to face the Blackhawks, as both teams look to fight for their playoff lives. Morrison hasn't lived up to the hype in their first year in the rugged NUIC. However, they are a battle-tested group that still plays with a lot of energy and big game speed, especially with Brady Anderson and Rylan Alvarado. Stockton will combat that with some wrestlers turned football players. We keep hearing the term Stockton doesn't look like much. Well, looks and strength are two different things, and the Blackhawks are strong and quick. Mark Detweiler has been the leader of this team all season, but Carter Blair and Noah Larson have shown us that they are more than capable and willing to help carry the load. The Blackhawks will enter this game as the favorite.
Our 11-man game of the week is brought to you by Best Realty. Best Realty has been helping Northern Illinois tackle their real estate needs since 1990. Whether you're buying or selling, in the market for residential, commercial, or acreage, they'll help you get the best deal. Call the Best Realty team at 815-248-3408 or visit them online at bestrealtyproperties.com.
Our Best Realty game of the week takes us back to EPC, albeit this time in Lanark, where the Wildcats will play host to Lena Winslow. EPC enters this game at 5-1, while Lena Winslow enters at 6-0. The Wildcats last made the playoffs in 2018. They also won the conference title that year en route to an undefeated regular season finish. While that won't happen this year, they do have a title shot on the line when they host the number 2 ranked Panthers. Adam Awender and Draven Zier have been Mr. Do-Everythings for the EPC offense, but you can't leave out the defensive play led by linebacker Will Burchin. EPC has a good combination of size, strength, and speed, and there is no better team to showcase that to than the Lena Winslow Panthers. The one team that has dominated the NUIC since EPC last won conference. The Panthers will feature both Lightning and Thunder with the backs Alex Schlichting and Aiden Wild. Lee Wynn is pretty basic when it comes to defense, but what they do well, staying basic, is staying home and playing assignment football. This is where Lee Wynn finds the most success. On top of that, they find ways to wear you down and then just rip you apart. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You have to be ready for full 48 minutes when you play Lee Wynn. Otherwise, be prepared to get your L and go home. The Panthers hit the road as the favorite here. The Route 73 rivalry game will also be doing the Route 73 Tackles Cancer Night to honor those who are fighting cancer. Donations will be going to the Shriners Children's Hospital. No one fights alone.
Our NUICfootball.com state rankings are presented by Leading Edge Fundraising. If you need to raise funds for new uniforms, tournament expenses, equipment, or more, look no further. Brandon Sharp at Leading Edge makes it easy for you and your team to have a fun and competitive way to raise funds for your program. Give Brandon a call today at 563-514-1647. Leading Edge Fundraising, your premier fundraising company.
Let's take a look at our state rankings for Week 7 right now. Starting in 8-man, we have a new number 1 at the top of the state rankings as the Polo Marcos find themselves back at the top of the rankings with a 6-0 record after they beat Milledgeville last week 30-14. Entering at number 2 is Ridgewood, and at number 3 is Amboy. Dropping down to number 4 is Milledgeville. Entering at number 5 is Martinsville. At number 6 is West Central. Number 7 is Pawnee. Number 8 is Milford Cisna Park. Number 9 is Flanagan Cornell Woodland. And rounding out the top 10 is West Carroll. Other teams receiving votes include South Beloit, St. Anne, and South Fork. In Class 1A, the number 1 team remains the same as the Althoff Catholic Crusaders are undefeated at 6-0. At number 2 is Lena Winslow, followed by Leroy at number 3. Number 4 is Camp Point Central, with number 5 being the Newman Central Catholic Comets. Number 6 is Calhoun after the Warriors tasted defeat for the first time this year with a 10-0 loss to Carrollton. At number 7 is Stark County. Number 8 is GCMS. Number 9 is Greenfield Northwestern. And rounding out the top 10 is Casey Westfield. Other teams receiving votes include Galena, Stockton, Cesar Valier, Rockford Lutheran, and Carrollton. In Class 2A, the number one team remains the same since the start of the year, and that is the Trojans of Moreau Forsyth. And number 2 is Quincy Notre Dame. Number 3 is Farmington. Number 4 is Tri-Valley. Number 5 is Johnston City. Number 6 is Chester. Number 7 is Chicago Christian. Moving up to number 8 is Eastland Pearl City. And number 9 is Moment. And rounding out the top 10 is Bismarck, Henning, Rossville, Allen. Other teams receiving votes include Rockridge, Bloomington Central Catholic, Vandalia, Pana, and Arthur Lovington Atwood Hammond. And in Class 3A, the number one spot remains the same as the Byron Tigers remain perfect at 6-0. Following them are the Broncos of Montini Catholic with their big upset win over Mundelein Carmel 34-10 as they improved to 4-2. And number 3 is Wilmington. Number 4 is St. Joseph Ogden. Number 5 is Monmouth Roseville. Number 6 is Seneca. Number 7 is Williamsville. Number 8 is Princeton. Number 9 is Paxton Buckley Loda. And dropping down to number 10 this week with their loss to Lena Winslow are the Rivermen of Du-Pec. Other teams receiving votes include Monticello and Eureka. That gives you a look at our state rankings for Week 7. A quick look into the playoff picture shows us 120 teams have reached the 5-win mark to be playoff eligible, and as the scope of the playoffs begin to become more clear, it also looks like all 5-win teams will make the playoffs. Right now, we are looking at a potential playoff point cutoff around 48 to 49 points, which means teams that are sitting at about 31 to 32 points currently are going to be on the playoff bubble if they reach 4 wins. Most of those teams will come from larger classes, but in small classes, Modern Day looks like a team with a shot at the playoffs with a 4-win record. Hope Academy is favored to get to 5 wins over the next 3 weeks, but if they're to be upset, they could also be another team that could see themselves in the playoffs as a potential 4-win team and still making the show. We know at least 4 of those teams that will make it as 4-win teams will be coming from the Chicago Catholic League as well. Taking a look at cutoffs, my projected cutoffs for Class 1A are at 303, as Bloomington Central Catholic has moved back up to Class 2A in the most recent projections, making Arthur Lovington Atwood Hammond the largest team in the playoff field. Oregon scored a big win over Stillman Valley, turning their playoff outlook around in my projections. I now have them getting called on Selection Saturday at 5-4 as the largest 2A school with an enrollment of 417. And in Class 3A, we have seen some regular 4A teams losing enrollment and encroaching on the 3A field, but they return to the 4A field for now, as the recent projections have the cutoff at 561.5. Just to compare my work with the Seuss's work, we don't always agree on the same teams, as we kind of do our projections differently, but I do tend to like my model as it works for me, especially in the smaller classes. He has the largest team in Class 1A this week at 303, which matches my projection outlook. That team is Arthur Lovington Atwood Hammond. In Class 2A, the Seuss has the cutoff at 412, with the largest school being Carlinville. This is where we differ a little, with a few differences in which teams are making the playoffs in that Class 2A field. And in Class 3A, we return to similar cutoffs as well at 561.5, as Chicago South Shore is showing themselves to be the largest school in the Class 3A field, at least after 6 weeks and moving forward. There is still a lot of football to be played, as we have 97 teams that sit with 3-3 records trying to make the final 136 spots to fill the field. 40% of those teams that are 3-3 come from Class 1A through 3A, which has been the areas of the biggest shifting so far. be prepared as we continue to watch these trends to see our playoff picture unfold. That gives you a recap on week 6, a look ahead at week 7, and some big games in our area. You get a larger scope into our playoff model, and you can look at our playoff projections on Twitter and Facebook at NUIC Football. With some big games ahead of us and the season winding down, get out to the games, enjoy those Friday night lights while they still last, and as always, root for the NUIC.